Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have you all here. Welcome to the month of February. The Super Bowl championship is back in the Pacific Northwest, its rightful home. At the Salem Chamber, we believe in helping businesses prosper so our entire community may thrive. We are managed by a 25-person volunteer board of directors, many of whom are in this room today, and leading that group for this fiscal year is Ted Ferry with Ted Ferry State Farm Insurance. El Presidente.
I tell you, I got to get my wife to more of these events, so I loved how Tom introduces me. It's like, if I could only walk into the house and have that introduction all the time, I'd feel happy. So, welcome everybody to Chamber Forum meeting. A special thank you to any new Chamber members, as well as anybody this is your first forum. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you always to Hagen Hamilton Insurance Solutions for being our season sponsor. Now I'd like for all of you guys to please put down your forks and drinks, and please stand with me for a moment of prayer and reflection, as well as we'll have Matthew Miller come on up to sing our national anthem. Let's pray. Gracious Father, we take this moment to pray or reflect, each in our very unique own way, on our lives and on this moment. We are thankful for the meal before us and those who made this event possible. We are thankful for our elected officials and the countless leaders in this room. Help us all to have the heart of a servant. We are grateful for this day, for its blessings and its opportunities, and we are also thankful for the challenges and the trials. Give us all wisdom, strength, and guidance to take on each and every day with our hearts and actions of love, joy, kindness to everyone. Selah. Matthew, will you please sing for us?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, we're so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Well, that will be next year's singer at the Super Bowl. So thank you, Matthew. Matthew Miller is the owner of and the pit boss of Miller's Barbecue in Northeast Salem. He's deeply involved, as many of you guys know, Matthew is deeply involved with foster services as well as homeless youth, and also serving as a real faith leader within our community. His restaurant, of course, has tasty breakfasts and tasty lunches, so I really encourage you to check him out. I know our office is having breakfast, I think, next week or the week after with his catering department. So at this time, please join me to watch a special video presentation from our Forum Speaker Series presenting sponsor. Boy, that's a lot of things to say. Hagen Hamilton Insurance Solutions.
Do the right thing is our first value, and it's the most core to what we are as a business and what we do. We believe in long-term relationships. Doing things the right way is the only way we can do them. We've been in the community for 115 years, so Everything we do starts with that value of do the right thing. We're going to make sure we do right by the client every single time.
Excellence is found in its pursuit. It's about getting a little bit better every day, overcoming challenges, setting high standards. Excellence is a habit. It's not a finish line.
I love working with my clients and strategizing with them to help them with their employee benefit plans. But coming back to the office and working as a team with my coworkers and those account managers is integral to what I do.
If you want to go fast, go by yourself. You want to go far, go with the team. When you think about your business and your company and looking out into the future, you want to be partnered up with companies that are going to be there for you. Companies like Hagen Hamilton.
Hagen Hamilton is proud to sponsor the Forum Speaker Series, and we thank you for joining us. Enjoy the presentation.
The other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is any of our special ambassadors that are here that wear the navy blue vests or the jackets. Make sure that we always greet them. They do such a great job of greeting us to every event. Make sure you thank them for all that they do. They show up early, they stay late. They're really here to make sure that they serve us in all that we need. I'd also like for any of Chamber of Commerce past presidents, if you could please stand and be recognized at this time. Look at that, still showing up, huh Mike? Thankful for all of you. And also, if you are a current Salem Chamber of Commerce board member, the volunteer board, if you could please stand, we'd love to recognize you as well. Great turnout as always. I'd love to introduce our head of the table today. Sitting at our, next to me actually, a couple of insurance guys. Chad Neal is an insurance agent representing the Forum season sponsor, Hagen Hamilton Insurance Solutions. Jim Bernau is the founder and president of Willamette Valley Vineyards, and he will be half of our keynote presentation. And then of course, Mike Osborn will have the other half of the presentation. I don't know how they're gonna do it. They'll wrestle for the mic. But he is the current CEO of Willamette Valley Vineyards. So thank you very much for the head of the table. Let's see. Now I'd love to invite Tom Hoffer back up to the stage and get me down because he has a special award to hand out.
One of the things our organization looks forward to most at Forum Speaker Series is our Spirit of Salem Award. And this is our 6th year of doing these fairly periodically at each of our Forum luncheons. And oftentimes, these individuals are very well known by their community. And I think today's will be similar. But a little interesting twist on today. Oftentimes, we see the leaders who are so out in front. And leadership appears in many ways. And I think you'll see that a little bit today. Today, we are honored to recognize an individual who has had a huge impact on the greater Salem area, but someone you'd not likely think of when considering the who behind so many special efforts. Today's award recipient organized specialized training, recovery skills, appearance by for-profit leaders, and advanced schooling for 23 Oregon Youth Authority inmates. Of these 23 incarcerated young adults, 13 went on to graduate from college while in jail. For 10 years, she served as a secretary for an organization aimed at providing therapeutic classroom experiences for children, home visits for families, education and training for parents and caregivers, and family mental health services. Today, you know that organization as Family Building Blocks. She served as the meeting organizer for the Croc Capital Campaign. She did the same for the 2008 Chemeketa Bond Campaign, which passed despite the double majority requirement. Quite an incredible feat. She partnered with then Mayor Anna Peterson to successfully organize and launch No Meth, Not in My Neighborhood, bonding together a diverse Salem community. For a decade, she brought foster care children and youth from Boys and Girls Club to the Oregon State football games, where kids saw college football for the first time in person, complete with sodas, popcorn, hot dogs, and any other snack they requested. For 30 years, she has organized the Mr. Holland's Opus Project, managing the Withnell Scholarship for students desiring to become music teachers. Over 150 scholarships have been awarded, and she has orchestrated each of these as a skilled but quite humble leader. Remarkably, 30 of the scholarship recipients have come back to Salem Kaiser to teach music in our community. She helped CASA of Marion and Polk counties to turn around their organization in 2016, and at the age of 50, she decided to finish her college degree at Linfield, graduating with honors. For over 36 years, she has been the backbone and the organizational leader behind the philanthropic efforts of Gail and Dick Withnell. She is a wordsmith and a superior writer over any of your chat GDP programs. I quote, "I couldn't have made the impact in our community without Judy leading the way." Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our February Spirit of Salem Award recipient, Judy Proctor. We're going to do a quick photo.
Okay, I don't have to say anything, do I?
You do.
I do. Oh, my gosh. I have to say that since July 17th, 1989, I have been so honored and so blessed to be Sancho Panza to the Don Quixote of our community. And it's been a journey, and there have been wonderful, wonderful people that I've met because of being associated with Dick Withnell. And thank you all. I'm shaking. But again, the Lord has blessed me so much, but these last 36 and a half years, it's just been a mountaintop. Thank you so much.
The main event, the Super Bowl of today. I had a few members a couple months ago bring up an interesting thing that in our exec group talked about this a little. Oftentimes, you come to a forum lunch, and we're hitting you with pretty heavy topics, and we don't want to lose the incredible side and positive side of our community. It is our duty to bring these challenging topics to you and educate ourselves, but there's incredible stories to be told right here in this community. And today, we're going to hear one of the best. When you look at the lush rolling hills of the Willamette Valley, we now see thousands of vine-filled acres, beautiful tasting rooms, and wonderful caregivers of the earth and natural resources. But today's story predicates our modern understanding of Oregon's winemaking abilities. Our story begins in 1983 on a sloped property in South Salem. And honestly, it started a little earlier than that, I bet you're going to hear. We have two special individuals here to share a uniquely Oregon story. Willamette Valley Vineyards wines are a collaborative effort of the vineyard and winemaking teams. Known around the world as a premier producer of the finest Pinot Noir, Willamette Valley Vineyards is so much more than that. Among the winery's unique distinctions is that it's owned by more than 20,000 wine enthusiasts, where you can find their stock on the NASDAQ each and every day, WVVI, and WVVIP. Founder and President Jim Bernau's vision of building a world-class Oregon winery, world-class Oregon winery with shareholder support has expanded now to include a sparkling winery, Domaine Willamette, in the Dundee Hills, as well as 4 wine-focused restaurants across Oregon and Washington. In May of last year, Mike Osborn joined Jim in leadership, serving as CEO. Osborn is a native of Southern Oregon. After a period in the software industry, he launched Wine.com in Portland in 1998. Way to get ahead of that one, by the way. Over the last 27 years, Osborn has built Wine.com into a leading online wine retailer. Combining forces with Bernau creates a remarkable leadership team, taking the vineyard to the next phase of its evolution, all centered on innovation and stewardship. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to introduce Jim Bernau and Mike Osborn, leaders at Willamette Valley Vineyards.
Thank you, Tom. You know, you heard his message, and you probably saw the teaser, if you saw the teaser that he sent out before this luncheon, about how you do take on very difficult subjects. And so his suggestion was to make sure that we brought some wine. And that always seems to help with difficult discussions. You know, you've seen it. You've seen the Oregon wine industry actually take shape and grow as you right in this community. And a number of you have participated in that growth, including in helping develop Willamette Valley Vineyards. You know, it's been now for me well over 43 years, but started planting vines 43 years ago. And I you know, as time was going on, I'm now 72 years old. I knew I needed a successor. And we went and it's not easy to find a CEO for a public company, especially one this small. And we did quite a search. Well, the person that we ended up selecting as our CEO didn't apply. I called him. He and I worked together for many years as one of his I might have been his very first customer at Wine.com when he first started it. Of course, now the world's leading wine internet retailer, exceeding, I think, at one time, $400 million a year in revenues. So considerably larger than the responsibility he has taken on. He left Wine.com after 25 years as its founder to run Willamette Valley Vineyards, for which I'm very grateful. He's an entrepreneur in his own right and a native Oregonian, and he understands our story. And what's important to us as Oregonians, the values that we hold dear. Here at the estate, you can see we did set out to build a world-class winery. And over that time, with your help, there's a number of world-class wineries now produced by Oregonians in the Willamette Valley and other parts in the other AVAs of Oregon. Here you can see the vines I first planted, which is now called Bernau Block. And you can also see a number of you have been up to the estate and enjoyed the tastings and the programming up there. But I wanted to point out just to the right of that image, there's a couple of suites that my wife built, Jan, that she got LEED certified gold. Jan also managed and drove the whole remodel of the estate winery. And the year after she completed it, Sunset Magazine named it the #1 wine tasting experience in America. There's Jan. I wanted to tell you that she's in a fight for her life. We are. She's facing glioblastoma, brain cancer, and she's got a panel of oncologists from Seattle to California helping her understand and fight this terrible disease. Now that I've learned about it, I've learned how many people are affected by it. But she wanted to make sure that in this program today, we gave you the opportunity to experience some of the things that she's created and built. I also wanted to tell you that the oncologists are astonished at how she's been able to hold back the glioblastoma, and it really can only be accounted for the power of prayer. And I want to thank you all very much for the support you've given us in keeping this at bay. She spent 6 years designing, planning, and building Domaine Willamette, which is our sparkling winery in the Dundee Hills. And one of the things that we're going to do today is that you have some cards on your table. She wanted to make sure this was fun for you. On those cards, we're actually going to raffle off 3 experiences for Willamette Valley Vineyards. The first experience is at Domaine Willamette, where she built a founder's dwelling there. There's a 2-night stay in the founder's dwelling at Domaine Willamette as our #1 prize today in our raffle that we're going to do right after this presentation, including this 3 Magnum. Now this is Matee. This is one of our wines from the Walla Walla. That's a red blend. And I know for some of you, this will probably just last the evening. The second prize we're doing is dinner for 2 at our Lake Oswego tasting room and restaurant, and with tickets to the Oregon Ballet to see Princess and the Pea. And so I thought that some of you might really enjoy that. I don't know how many of you have been to our tasting room and restaurant in Lake Oswego, but they'll treat you very well. And this is really part of our strategy that both Mike and I will speak to. And then the third item in our drawing is a truffle hunt. Now you know, not only was the discovery not too long ago, in our lifetimes really, that the Willamette Valley in Oregon possessed the right conditions to grow and make world-class wine. A number of you also now know that we have an unbelievable resource here in the Willamette Valley, truffles, which is really at the apex of the food pyramid in culinary pursuit. Chefs all over the world seek out the best truffles for their cooking, and we've got them here. In fact, this truffle hunt is at the winery. So this is for 4 people to enjoy a truffle hunt with our chef, executive chef, culinary director, DJ McIntyre, that's there on the right. Now we wanted to make sure that you had some wines to taste for your luncheon. And the first wine is a wine that a number of you may not be familiar with. It's our new version of Oregon Blossom that we're making to appeal to a younger crowd. And so and that's what we poured you first. You can just get a sense of the cherries and raspberry and the aroma of that. It's made with Pinot Noir, and to add a refreshing, very fruit-forward aspect to that wine, we grow some muscat, some early muscat, and we put that in there as well to make it a very appealing beverage, even all by itself. The next wine is something that's fairly new, and that is making a white wine from Pinot Noir grapes through free-run juice. In other words, no crushing of the grapes, just the juice that's relieved from the skins as we bring them into the cellar. And if you close your eyes and taste the wine, you will pick up the aspects of Pinot Noir in that wine. And so Pinot Noir lovers are very intrigued by this approach to making Pinot Noir, white Pinot Noir. And we found a great deal of success, as you can see how the reviewers have taken this wine. And now this particular vintage, 2023, was a low vintage year, partly because the 2022 was very heavy and vines will compensate themselves by producing a low yield the next year. And so what happens, and we also had hail, by the way, at Bloom, which is fairly unusual. The French get hail quite often. But you'll notice when you taste that wine, the viscosity in that wine and its length as you taste it. The last wine we're showing is Kitty Hawk. Now, you all know about our dedication to sustainability and the practices we engage in. This vineyard was started by Susanna Owens and John Totten. And actually, it was over 45 years ago that John Totten and Gordon Hanna encouraged me to plant vines in the Salem Hills. And then John later, with Susanna, his partner, ended up planting his own vineyard in 2008. And in the Salem Hills is growing some of the best Pinot Noir in the world. Now, this wine, by the way, you'll have to wait for it. I know that we had some that was labeled and it's all gone, so I think they're serving this wine out of a shiner. but so it's in high demand. But you can taste the remarkable quality of Pinot Noir in this wine. So we wanted to make sure you had a chance to do that today. Here they are, Susanna Owens and John Totten, and they are here today. Would you please acknowledge them? Kitty Hawk. One of the things we do is that, for example, this wine has been bottled in what's called a Ravino bottle. That's a bottle that you can return to the winery and it gets reused. In fact, these bottles are so strong that they can be reused about 35 times or so, which is a great way to reduce our carbon footprint and encourage reuse by consumers. You all know that ever since we started the winery, we've been offering a 10 cents for every bottle you return to the winery. Of course, we talk you into using that to buy more wine. And in spite of all of that, our state government legislature last session imposed a $120,000 tax a year on Oregon wine, ourselves, for example, by volume, for the luxury or the privilege to put wine in a glass bottle. So there are times, Tom, when we really do need a glass of wine when the legislature's in session. But here you see from the Cascade Raptor Center, this is a juvenile orphaned Bernau. And they're very effective in a very natural way at keeping pests down in the vineyard. Now, you'd think that this is, I live there, of course. I've lived there all these years, my wife and I. And you'd expect the soft, gentle hooting, right, in the middle of the night. I don't know how many of you know barn owls. They don't softly, gently hoot. They screech. And you can hear them all night. But they're out there doing their work. And the other thing that, amongst all the measures that we take in sustainable practice, we're one of the few wineries of our size that still use high-quality natural cork to enclose our bottles, even though it's expensive to do. In fact, we'd save over $250,000 a year if we went to screw caps. Well, there's two reasons why we don't. One is for the quality of the wine. High-quality natural cork is far better for wine quality if you're going to cellar that bottle. And many people do. They'll buy a special bottle and they'll put it down and wait for several years to enjoy it, as you should. But the other reason is that the cork forests of the Mediterranean are second only to the Amazon in their importance to the world's biosphere. They pull carbon out of the atmosphere. They sequester it in their bark. These cork trees live over several hundred years. The cork bark is peeled off of them every 9 years and used to make these enclosures. So it's very important to us to continue to support this cradle-to-cradle approach, this very low impact, very important to the atmosphere, by supporting the over 10 million acres of natural cork trees in the Mediterranean, which is Portugal and Spain and North Africa and Italy. Now, I don't know how many of you know about this, but now that you know that cork is vital to the long-term health of the planet, I suspect you'll know that if you buy another twist off of aluminum capsuled wine, you may have difficulty at the pearly gates. Now, one of the things that Tom wanted me to talk about with you today is what's happening in our Oregon wine industry and the industry in the nation. And one of the things Tom said is he's going to start a clock to make sure that I behave myself. It didn't talk too long. And I can't see it, Tom. It's not ticking. Because, you know, we brought plenty of wine. So here, I wanted you to see this. So this is 30 years ago, in the far left. You can see, you know, not very many wineries. You can see a lot of distributors. Those are the trucks you see. So wineries had plenty of opportunities for distribution, and they had lots of small customers. That was 30 years ago. And then you can see what's happened. And in the intervening time, more wineries, fewer distributors, fewer retailers and restaurants. And then today, where you can see a lot of wineries, but you see them bunched together, that's because large organizations are buying them and consolidating those brands, increasing their market leverage and power in the market. You can see very few distributors left, and you can see a much smaller number of retailers. So that's the environment that we knew we were heading into. And like all business owners, you have to think about, okay, what are we going to do for the future? Because this is what's happening. We're going to see very large interests in distribution and in wine production gaining more and more leverage in the marketplace, including very large retail buyers who will then use their leverage, right, to squeeze the margin out of the producers that remain. I think all of you in business probably understand how that works. So what are we going to do? So you can see the results of, in our wholesale sales to distributors over time, what started to happen. So you can see it kind of plateaued at about $20 million in wholesale revenues a year. You can see the orange there. That's our gross profit in our making our wine and selling it to distributors. So where were we going to find our growth for our community, for our employees, and for our shareholders? So we started to invest. So here you can see the blue line is investing cash. So we invested over this time period over $70 million. Now during that time, of course, we're accumulating earning EBITDA, as you can see there in the green, accumulated to over $56 million during this time period. And then I put the depreciation line in there to show you what happens. And of course, you all know this, that when you deploy new assets, you have to suffer the paper losses, right, on your income statement. But you still have to have the courage to make those investments, knowing you're going to suffer those paper losses because you have to plan for the future. So that's why you often hear that public companies who are traded on their quarterly earnings often think too short term. We don't. Because if we were thinking too short term, we would have never made those investments because we wouldn't want to suffer such large paper losses in depreciation. So here's what happened over this time period. You can see that our total assets rose to about $110 million. You see that our owner's equity, which includes their investment as well as the retained earnings, approached close to $70 million. And you can see way at the bottom, you can see our, and I've got Columbia Bank here, and maybe Farm Credit in the room, so thank you both. We do have just under $15 million in bank debt. So you can see how cautious we are and careful we are with our investors' money and being very, very lightly leveraged. But that gives you an idea of what's happened over this time period. And that's really what Tom spoke about, is that, you know, there's a number of success stories in the wine industry and in other parts of business here in Salem. But you can see here that clearly Oregon wine enthusiasts have fueled a very successful business model. So this is what Tom spoke about. There's over, 25,000 households that are either owners or club members of Willamette Valley Vineyards. You can see them all over the nation. So when you do have a challenge in business and you have a challenge with your customer, the best thing we thought we should do is convert wine consumers into owners, where they have a vested interest in the success of their winery. And so this is what they built with their resources. You can see our different tasting rooms, one actually in Walla Walla, one down in Folsom, California, and then a number of tasting room and restaurants here in the Valley, and one in Bend, Oregon. So as a result of the investments in retailing, and this is of course where Mike's expertise comes in, we have gone from, $2.5 million in retail revenues to over $21 million in retail revenues in this time period. And that's because we have shifted our weight, knowing we're going to have problems with wholesale and with very large retailers and very large distributors and very large producers. We've shifted our weight to develop a direct relationship with our customer, with the imbiber of our wine. And that's really the most important relationship to have. Now, one of the things that you can see in this table here is you can see this blue. Now that is the, let's see if I can, and then you can see that's club, so you can see the growth of wine club members, and then you see the red. Well, that's our owners. So here's what our owners are doing. We started a preferred offering called WVVIP, which is traded on the NASDAQ, and it provides 22 cents a share to investors. So depending upon the price of the stock, it's about a 6.5%, 5.5%, or 5% return. But what we encourage our investors to do, and we went to the Securities and Exchange Commission and got permission from them to do this. It's the first time that the federal government has ever allowed this. The SEC allowed us to qualify people who wanted to buy shares. So we sent out a form, right, to the people expressing interest in buying the shares and asked them questions that would reveal how good a wine enthusiast they were, and if they would pledge to apply the dividend they were receiving to the purchase of wine, their wine. So over half of the dividend we pay in wine. So this is our secret sauce, because we make that wine at a margin. Even with the shareholder getting a 25% discount, even with the benefits of buying wine through your wine dividend credit, it's almost like perpetual motion. For example, a shareholder will spend about $500 a year buying wine. These thousands of shareholders each. The average dividend's about $114. The gross margin on our wines is 65%. You beginning to see the model? Now, there's no such model like this that exists, but boy, does it work. Now, there's one problem with this model if you are an accountant and you study our financials. So if you look at our financials, you look at our income statement, you're going to see down at the bottom of the income statement, you're going to see a dividend charge, an annual dividend charge. You're going to go to the balance sheet, and you're going to see $2.5 million on the liability part of the balance sheet called unearned revenue. Well, the generally accepted accounting practices doesn't know anything about this model. But what's hidden in that $2.5 million unearned revenue on the balance sheet is over $2 million worth of operating income. The shareholders just haven't brought their credits in to get their wine. So you see? So the company actually is actually much stronger than it looks on paper. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mike come up and walk you through one of the reasons why he decided to join Willamette Valley Vineyards and the things that he's doing for Willamette Valley Vineyards for our future. And I think I've taken up quite a bit of his time. So, Mike, good luck on that. But there will be a drawing. Make sure you get your name and the card in for the drawing. And we'll be awarding those at the end of the presentation through a drawing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jim. I think it's pretty clear to all of you why this opportunity to join Jim and the team was so important to me. I am a Medford native. As Jim knows, grew up on the Rogue River down in southern Oregon. We have a vineyard that we will point to in a minute. But the opportunity to return to Oregon, there's no greater opportunity than this unicorn that Willamette Valley Vineyards is. And I think through a couple of examples here and what Jim mentioned about the DNA of the business is just so important to be connected to consumers. Much like Apple, you know, they don't sell a gadget, they sell an entire ecosystem. And that is what you're going to see in Willamette Valley Vineyards, the opportunity to really connect with a lifestyle business with consumers directly. And that's the push over the last couple of decades, where the change from being primarily channel-driven to retail accounts to entertaining our own customers make a big difference in the industry. I'll just flash through. Unfortunately, I can't see all the slides here, but give you a chance to see some of the vineyard holdings, starting up in Tualatin Estate Vineyard. This is one of the furthest northern vineyards in Oregon, planted to Pinot Noir, but also a lot of Alsatian wines, originally planted by Bill Fuller, who we just lost late last year, and celebrated Bill with a Lifetime Achievement Award last week by the Oregon Wine Board. It was an incredible experience. Unfortunately, again, posthumously, but Connie, his wife, received it. Jim presented it. That was at the Oregon Convention Center just last week. This property is drop-dead gorgeous, and if you haven't been up there, it's worth the drive. It's one of the furthest northern vineyards in Oregon, as the Willamette, the Columbia heads north. Louisa Vineyard, also in the northern part of the valley. Bernau Estate Vineyard, this is the property in the Dundee Hills that Jim mentioned, Jan had helped create, and I know that's one of the drawing items here. 2-night stay at a gorgeous guest home. Elton and Ingram, this is planted by Dick and Betty O'Brien years ago here in the old Amity Hills. It is, we make a number of single vineyards in the Willamette Valley label, but also a Elton. I would have to call it the Elton because the label is unique. But this is a wine that you can taste at our properties. Where to go? Thank you, Elton. The estate vineyard in here in Salem Hills you're aware of, and then let's go up to Walla Walla. The Pampern Estate, which is in a district that's not, it's in Walla Walla appellation. But I want to make sure you realize that 43% of the plantings of Walla Walla are in Oregon. It's one of the 2 appellations in the U.S. The Columbia Valley has a little, titch of it coming into the Hood River area. But this is a surprise because most people immediately jump to the conclusion you're going to be in, the state of Washington, or you're at Whitman College when you think of Walla Walla. I like to say the high rent district of the appellation is actually in Oregon. And one of them is this beautiful vineyard planted to Bordeaux varieties. And half of that Métis, that Jim, the double magnum here, a 3-liter bottle of Métis, half of it comes from Pampern, meaning the estate with Merlot, Cabernet Franc, an example, Bordeaux varietals. And the other half of it comes from the Valley Floor, which is what is affectionately now called the Rocks District of Milton Freewater. That's an AVA, newest AVA in Washington. It's a mouthful, unfortunately, because I think there was a Rocks already in California. So they had to name it the Rocks District of Milton Freewater. It grows Rhone varieties, so like Syrah, Mourvedre, Viognier. Those are the wines that would typically grow in the Rhone Valley. So half of the Métis is Syrah in this bottle, this particular vintage, or close to it. So it's a great combination. And that's, by the way, this 23 vintage that we're selling today at the winery was featured in Wine Enthusiast magazine, one of our leading publications, with a 94-point review and editor's choice just past December. Highly unusual for this price point and for the recognition. So one of the things that we've often talked about, easy onboarding for me, was just the high quality of wine. The company's always had high quality and critical acclaim, but being able to get out and make certain that all of the critics of our industry see it and have a chance to taste can make a big difference in how the wine is perceived by consumers and our trade partners. Parami is a brand out of the Umpqua Valley, Jim's home turf. Okay, this is a blend between Iberian wines like Tempranillo, for instance, what would be grown in Spain, along with Merlot and Syrah perhaps. But it's a red blend coming from the Umpqua Valley. And down in the Southern Oregon Appalachians, our Griffin Creek label. That's actually one of the very first times I had a meal with Jim after starting wine.com. We were with the Moores, with the late Don and Trouty Moore, at their home, and joined by Joe Dobbs, our then winemaker, and that was a wonderful experience. And Jim offered to drive me back to Portland, so we had 3-4 hours in the car. This is in 1998, I think, or 99. It was a bit ago, but the Griffin Creek property is beautiful. Down in Folsom, California, the Wine Works, Willamette Wine Works, we call it. Now we have to make a little California wine for regulatory purposes. So Natoma is the brand of wine, California varietals. So there's a Cabernet, Petit Verdot, there's Sauvignon Blanc, and et cetera, made there in California to be sold at our property. On the second floor of this gorgeous building in the historic district, you can enjoy all of our wines, though. And our consumers get connected to Walla Walla, the Willamette Valley, as well as Natoma. It is highly unusual for, especially since it's not even permitted in most of California, for a brand to sell each of their wines across the tasting rooms. Very unusual. Part of it is the land use laws in Oregon, preferred because Jim did a lot of lobbying early on in his career, made it possible for Willamette Valley Vineyards to pour these unique wines at each of our properties. And a lot of my friends in California are quite jealous of this situation. If you haven't been to the Vancouver waterfront, this is the new development. Again, you're looking over the Columbia River back to Portland. This second floor space is one of our most successful tasting rooms and restaurants, and again, a chance to imbibe in both what Willamette Valley has to offer, but also in what we're doing in Walla Walla. In this environment, you can actually go through a blending exercise with our our Walla Walla, Oregon side, our Walla Walla wines in a blending exercise, which is incredible. Bend, Oregon, right downtown on Wall Street. This is the tasting room. I happen to have a chance to spend between Christmas and New Year's a few days that the mountain was open. And I know it's not been a lot of snow, but my daughters had a chance to do a little bit of skiing, about 2 or 3 days worth, and then I know it's been rough, unfortunately, for snowfall there. But right downtown is another example where we are bringing the wine experience to our customers. These tasting rooms and restaurants are meant to get close to the consumers and bring them where they are. Happy Valley, this property is both indoor and outdoor seating available, seasonally, maybe the outdoor, but a wonderful property where we found so many of our owners were living close to these, just like Jim mentioned at Lake Oswego, where there'll be a drawing. We discovered how the proximity of our owners were close to these properties, and that was the reason why we wanted to have the tasting rooms so close to them. I'll transition into a little bit of industry information and give you a chance to realize that there isn't doom and gloom for everybody in the wine business. If you're following a lot of stories or miscommunication about health benefits or the like, the WHO a few years ago, World Health Organization saying no amount of alcohol would be good for you. These myths are being rebutted with science and experts at this point. So we're very hopeful that the narrative will change, but there is a anti-alcohol movement in the globe, not necessarily even in the U.S. But I want to talk a little bit about some sources of data here. The Wine Market Council is a California-based organization. This chart here is demonstrating price points and the audience of who is enjoying wine. The fastest growing segments are this $15 to $20 and $20 to $30, which are up in the industry. It's no place to be in the bulk wine business, or as I say, if you're at the grocery store, it's the wine that's at the same level as kitty litter. Not good. That's the part of the market that is not growing at all. Oregon uniquely has, our Pinot Noir business, and specifically Sip Source, by the way, is the source of this data. It's replenishment reporting from our wholesalers, and so it includes not just retail, but also on-premise or restaurant accounts. And it demonstrates, again, in Oregon wine specifically, the segments 20 to 30, 30 to 50, highest growth, and there's a volume and revenue share here, and 50 and up. So we have 3 pockets of growth. At Willamette Valley Vineyards, we have very few wines under $20. The Oregon Blossom is just over 25 that you're tasting here. Our Pinot Gris, $18 to $20. Everything else is in the segments that are growing. And I think that our contemporaries in Oregon are seeing the same results. And then lastly, I want to share with you the Wine Market Council's data on youth and consumers who are buying wine. By the way, in Gen Z, that segment, only half of Gen Z are of legal drinking age today. So we don't have that entire segment available to us. But these are the 2023 and 2025 are represented, the orange and green bars, to demonstrate that millennials, an example, grew from 30 to 31% in that length of time. We're holding our own with Gen X. Sorry, this is the consumer base that's most like having children at home or at their high income opportunities today. So they're a great source of growth for the industry and have been. Whereas baby boomers, are aging, declining in their purchases, but not out of the woods yet, right? They're not stopped drinking their wines. It's just that their children are drinking more of them, and which is a good sign. I noticed one of the other things that I experienced at wine.com was every decile, the younger the consumer, the more expensive by the bottle they were drinking. This is very, very interesting because the average selling price in my prior role was at $32. The industry's average is about $14. So it's a much higher, it's a lot more Pinot Noir being sold at wine.com. So this consumer base, the Gen Z and X had an average selling price over $34, whereas the boomers had an average selling price at $24. So they would drink, the older you are, the less expensive wine you might have, more bottles per order, albeit. We always saw that. So the kids may have a wine rack and their parents had the wine cellar, but clearly the definition there is that these consumers are really buying into a, I'll say, affordable luxury, okay? And the same holds true with sparkling wine. Like the reason why we have Domaine Willamette at an $80 price point for Brut, a lot of folks would say, well, aren't your young consumers drinking Prosecco or something, Cava, something cheap? Not a chance. The youngest consumers drink champagne, or I'll call it champagne stunt doubles, like what we have here in the Willamette Valley. Beautiful, gorgeous wine, affordable luxury. That's what young consumers wanted. The same holds true with this is a chart of Oregon wine consumers. Danny Brager presented this at the Oregon Wine Symposium last week. Boomers index higher for, in this case, Oregon wines at the top, all wine drinkers. And you can see boomers, Gen X, millennials. Millennials favor Oregon wine more than they do the general population. Lastly, Silicon Valley Bank, now under new ownership, but nevertheless annually presents a trend on the industry, does show that we had a peak that we met back in 2020. That peak has declined a titch, and the 2040 plan is that the wine industry will continue to grow itself out of here. This is a retail value at about $75 billion industry. I hope that when you're shopping in the regional stores, you'll see the hard work that our marketing team has done. This is incredible opportunities to demonstrate bring the estate, if you will, into a store. For instance, our local Ross would be a good example here, where we can show the end caps and demonstrate both the tower as well as our trademark arch. And then in your glass today, you had Oregon Blossom. This we have a white and the rosé. Today we poured a rosé. Very refreshing, wine made with forced carbonation, so it's not just like champagne, but close to it, a little bit of effervescence. And what the team has done here is created a number of recipes to encourage, like a spritzer. So there's a couple of different recipe cards that are floating around and will be our retail accounts to demonstrate how you can take that wine and cut its alcohol down a little bit, if that's what young consumers wish. Also on premise, we have our golden coin. If anybody ever experienced this yet? It's a chance when you're buying wine at retail, you might find a golden coin in the bottle at the capsule. And what we do from this is donate to a local charity, food bank, hopefully, of the consumer's choice, and reward them with an equal amount of an award. So the golden coin has been very popular with our retail accounts. In the last fall, summer-fall, we released W. This is a low alcohol product, not NOA, but low, 9.5%, 9% Chardonnay, and a Pinot Noir. Again, appealing to a consumer who isn't interested in maybe that 14% that typical wine has had, but this is a low alc project called W. I'll address a couple of things about our critics. James Suckling, one of the leading industry critics, used to be with the Wine Spectator 20 years ago. He has a wonderful road show he does. And Willamette Valley Vineyards, for this third year in a row, has been invited to go on this road show. So this year, it's a global producers, start in New York, go to Miami, then San Francisco, where Terry Colton, our winemaker, and he has a chance to pour our wines to the world of wine. There's a couple events in New York, 2 in Miami, 1 in San Francisco, that see about 3,000 guests each night. And it's a youthful audience. So very important opportunity to, again, demonstrate Oregon on a pedestal. Oregon's wine industry, we only produce 1% of what is, only 1% of what is made in the U.S., but just a couple of years ago, 23% of Wine Spectator's top 100 wines were Oregon. This past year, one of them appeared in the top 20 and 5 more on the list. So Oregon gets national recognition for our wine. And Willamette Valley Vineyards is getting wonderful recognition, not just from those critics, but others. James Suckling, I mentioned a moment ago, but also Wine Enthusiast, including that 94-point review of Métis. This is really clever because getting these wines on a national stage is very important. Out of the 80 wines that the company makes, we had 60 90-point reviews on more than 30 different wines last year. So Terry Colton and his winemaking team are doing a splendid job with all of the brands. And then Jim pointed out that Sunset Magazine had given us a lot of recognition years ago at the estate, best best tasting room in the U.S. And then the last couple of years, the USA Today has had a poll and allowed consumers to weigh in. And for the second year in a row, in this past July, we were awarded best tasting room in the United States by a survey of consumers. Our wine club placed second. And that's a big accomplishment as well. So the second favorite wine club in the United States, the 2 years in a row with best tasting room. This photo was shot just after that event, celebrating that award. And clearly, I think you probably recognize that view if you're here locally. So I thank you so much for letting me share the stories, the pictures, the property, and I know that Jim and I are willing to take a number of questions or also move on to the drawings too.
We're going to do, Mike, thank you so much. Jim, thank you so much. I have a microphone. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll skip right over to you. Ernesto, coming your way, sir.
Hey, Jim. Ernesto here. Prayers for your wife. I wish quick recovery. Question for you. How is the global warming, changing the wine industry in Oregon versus California, if there is such thing as global warming?
Well, I can tell you as a grower, my farming records over the last 43 years definitely show a warming trend. Now, there's lots of discussion about what the causes of that are. And as you know, the planet has warmed and cooled a number of times over the many thousands of years. But in any event, during our lifetimes, it has warmed. And there is, and one of the reasons why we're so dedicated to sustainability is because there's a clear connection between the carbon content in the atmosphere and growing temperatures. But it's not easy to say this, really, as a person who's environmentalist like myself. But actually, it's benefited us in the Willamette Valley. You know, when I first started growing Pinot Noir, you know, we would every year pray for sun. And now it comes. And the harvest times have been advancing from the latter part of the fall to earlier in the fall. It used to be that we'd harvest after the robins and the starlings, right, were migrating. Now we harvest before they do, which is a great benefit to us. But if you look at the reviews of Oregon wines over that time period, you'll also see it in the reviews. We have benefited by a warmer climate. Now, you can't say that if you live in Africa, but we certainly have here in the Willamette Valley. Now, the other thing we have done is to prepare for this future. If it continues to warm, we've made sure that we have invested in properties that are at higher elevations. And so we have the volcano block, which our shareholders just recently purchased 2 years ago, which right now is a perfect sparkling wine site that we'll be planting. It has a gorgeous view of the Cascades. There's like a 5-volcano view from this site at 800 feet in elevation. Just wait until you get out there with your family and friends and kick back at that view, tasting the wine. But anyway, that's how we have prepared, by making sure we've got places where we can go in higher elevations, where we can get later picking times. Great question, and it's, you know, there's a lot of science one way or the other on the issues of global warming, but if whatever the case is, we're ready for it.
Right here, Jim.
Jim, I know you grew up in the Umpqua Valley. Who was your greatest influence in getting started in the wine industry?
Wow. You know, Richard Sommer, who brought the very first Pinot Noir into Oregon, worked at planting his vineyard in the Umpqua Valley as the assistant surveyor, and was only a block away from my dad's law office in Roseburg. And he hired my dad as his attorney to help him get a winery license in Oregon. And my dad brought home his wines. I was 10 years old. My brother was 12. My dad brought home Richard Sommer's wines, Hillcrest wines, and he shared them at the dinner table. And my brother and I really liked those wines. Now, so what we did, now my folks who thought television was some left-wing plot, we didn't have any television, but we did have encyclopedias. And our folks insisted that we read those instead. Well, there's a chapter on fermentation in the encyclopedias. So we snitched my mom's frozen Concord grape juice out of the freezer and used aquarium equipment and the glass bottles, the jugs that milk came in, to start making our version of wine. And now let me tell you, it tasted awful. But there's a lot of sugar in that grape juice. So, wow, did it have an effect? And over time, Richard Sommer, my dad's client, actually would provide us some grapes as we got older. And it was only a news article in the Oregon Daily Emerald many, many years later in Eugene, where my folks learned that we'd hid the bottles in the crawl spaces underneath the house. So Richard Sommer, the very first winemaker in Oregon to bring Pinot Noir.
Jim, our last question is, and we noticed that you had the lower alcohol percentage, the 9% wine that you're offering. Does Willamette Valley Vineyards have any intention in looking into a altogether non-alcoholic edition of their wine?
Yes, but we have to get better at how to do that. And the industry's, really challenged with understanding this, how to do that. But we will offer to our customers a variety of options. Because we're owned by wine enthusiasts, we will go where they want us to go. And that's why you see the conduct of Willamette Valley Vineyards being what it is. It reflects the values of the people who own the company. All these wine enthusiasts who believe in transparency, vulnerability, authenticity, collaboration, stewardship. And so that's what you'll continue to see from us. Thank you all very much. Now we're going to do a drawing. I hope we've got all the cards picked up. Do we have all the cards picked up? We all ready to go? Okay, so, Mike? Mike's going to make sure he mixes up. This is for the first prize, and that is 2-night stay at Domaine Willamette in the founder's dwelling my wife built. Oh my heavens, Tracy Farnsworth, Dalkey Construction. Tip your hat to Dalkey Construction because they built our very first building, Tom Dalkey at Willamette Valley Vineyards. Tracy, congratulations. Andrew McCory? Andrew. Now that is the tickets, the Oregon Ballet tickets, and the dinner at the Lake Oswego restaurant. Where is Andrew, by the way? Andrew, these lights are bright. Congratulations. Dan Farrington. How about that? Number 3. Hey, thank you, Dan. You're going to have a lot of fun digging truffles with a truffle dog. And then we're going to make sure we spoil you by taking you up to the winery and cleaning you up and treating you to a great experience at the winery. You know, I want to thank all of you for the support you have given the Oregon wine community and our industry. You know, when we first started, you know, people thought we were crazy. And the only way that we were successful were the people here locally who gave us, you know, the support that you did, just like you do in the small businesses that are just starting out. And then also, all the professionals that help build our industry, the accountants, the lawyers, the engineers, the insurance agents, the bankers, all those individuals who came together to support us. You know, Orville Roth, the Ross, you know, Markets, boy, before anybody really thought about Oregon wine, boy, he leaned in heavily to support us. You know, Jerry Frank, for example, and you know, his knowledge of culinary expertise worldwide leaned in happily to help Oregon wine industry. Well, and so I could go on and on about all the people here in this room. We would not be where we are today without you and the leadership of the Chamber and Tom. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jim and Mike. I really appreciate it. We'll be praying for your wife as well for a quick healing there. What a great presentation today. Thank you also, Matthew Miller from Miller's Barbecue for performing our national anthem. And I just got to come back to Dan Farrington. I actually want to see some pictures of him filthy and dirty and stuff and digging stuff up. So looking forward to that. Another special thank you. We have in our midst just some real quality production here with Allied Video Productions, Capital Community Media, and also the Salem Convention Center. They just do a fantastic job for us every single month and all the other events that are here. So please thank you with them. Thank you also, Chad, for sitting next to me today. Two insurance guys still getting along. And thank you, Hagen Hamilton Insurance Solutions, for being our sponsor. At your tables today, you have this. This is one opportunity. You can always turn your phone on at this time and start using those QR codes to open up all the important events that are coming up. Thank you so much, Jackie Roche, our membership manager, for putting that together for us. But that is really a great way to load up your calendar with some great events at the Chamber. Speaking of great events that are coming up, March 9th, we are back to a very serious topic. We're going to have Carl Riccadonna, fresh out of the legislative short session, and he is Oregon's chief economist. So if you enjoyed the other economist presentation, get ready for another one coming right in. So yeah, BJ Blair is excited about another economist. So thank you for putting us back on the track of hard-nosed, serious stuff. Also coming up, zap the code here for our 75th annual First Citizens Banquet. It's going to be another great affair that's going to be presented right here by Mountain West Center, Community for Excellence, and Pioneer Trust Bank. This is just a great night for awards, and it is the 75th annual. So we're going to have First Citizen, we're going to have Distinguished Service, we're going to have young, outstanding young professional. And for the first time ever, fresh out of exec and the board, we're going to do a Outstanding Nonprofit Leadership Award this year. So we're excited about that. And that will be nominations closed on February 28th, so please get your nominations in. On behalf of the board of directors, please stay in tune with Tom and with Jameson if you're not getting the emails concerning the Chariots $40 million wage tax that they're proposing. We have a lot of moving pieces going on with that, as you can imagine, but please stay up to date. Make sure you're getting those emails if you're not. Judy, thank you so much for everything you've done for our community. Thank you for caring so much about kids and about just activities and everything that you've done. What a great Spirit of Salem Award winner, so thank you for serving our community. Today, we are closing with Ross Fresh Markets. I keep on saying that Tim Jennings, I don't know if he's here, he keeps on putting this together for us. I want to think that it's done with his personal hands. But today's winner of our centerpiece from Ross Fresh Markets is Heidi Dillon, branch manager of DeSantis Landscape. So congratulations. You can come on up. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, and we will see you on March 9th.